Hi, Ruben Donaldson with Explore Electric. I wanted to go over cloth wiring and, pretty much how to fix it, what it was made of. I am a licensed electrician, Explore Electric, a licensed contractor. I work in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. So those are the three boroughs that I work in. But I also wanted to basically make this video about how to fix cloth wiring. Now, please be aware, I always say this in all my videos, that there will be timestamps. So if you don't want to go over the boring history, if you don't care about any of that stuff, just jump over to the timestamp where it says how to fix cloth wiring. All right. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So if this doesn't pertain to you, you don't care, it's about your time, then just jump to the areas of the video that pertain to you. But I'm just going to at least go over what it is, what it's made of, and the history about it because it's interesting and I think it's going to help you in your install in general. So let's get into it. So repairing cloth, electrical wiring, and even damaged electrical wires, right? How do you do it? How do you identify it? When should you go a step beyond and maybe rewire a certain circuit? So we're going to find all that out. Right. So here's basically an example of like that old cloth wiring. This is what it looks like, right? And it's brittle, it's old. If you touch it, sometimes it just cracks right in your hand. So how do you deal with something like that? And when should you replace it, or when can you just fix it and save yourself some money? Right. So what is old cloth wiring? Right. Well, it was used in the 1930s and officially discontinued in the 1950s. All right. So basically, it was discontinued in the 1950s, but it was used until the 1970s. Now, why is that? Well, basically, that's because electrical supply houses, for them to save money, they usually buy material in bulk, right? And so when they buy material in bulk and it was discontinued, they still had a bunch of it that they had in bulk. And the reason why you buy in bulk is because you can get it at a wholesale or a discounted price. And then you can pass those savings on, and you can maximize your profits as you sell it to electrical contractors and people doing electrical work in your area, right? If you buy in bulk. So basically they had all this stock and they didn't want to just throw it out. So they just kept selling it until it ran out, right? And then you also have to think about the electrical contractors as well too. They usually have a contract, they enter into an agreement when they do electrical work for people, and sometimes they pre-order electrical wire for jobs to save money at a certain time. Maybe copper was really low at the time, and so they bought it when it was low in fear of it going higher, right? Because of economical demands. So maybe they already had reserved this electrical wire and this electrical equipment to install it already. So you had to wait for all these contracts and all these supply houses to just run out. So even though it was discontinued in the 1950s, it was probably used up until the 1970s, and maybe a little bit after, depending on your district and how much supply houses actually carried on hand. All right. Now, when it comes to old wiring, just be aware that old cloth wiring was treated with asbestos. So anytime you see old cloth wiring, just know that for it to be flame retardant, for it not to be flammable or be caustic, it had to be treated with asbestos. And at that time, asbestos just was the best thing smoking. It was just used in everything. It was used in insulation pipes. It was used in certain building material. It was used in plaster. So asbestos was used a lot as a way to mitigate anything that could possibly happen to make something flammable. So anything that was caustic that they were building with more than likely was treated with asbestos. And that also pertains to wire as well. All right. So most cloth wiring that you see has asbestos. Just be aware of it. And, obviously don't go touching your face or going to eat food after you touch it. You're going to get sick. All right. Now, the outer skin of that cloth wire, because it's so old and because it was made of different thermoplastics, which is pretty much the rubber part that's around the actual conductive part of the wire, because of age and how it was made and because it used a different chemistry to protect that bare wire, a lot of it now is cracking and degrading over time. So if you find it in your home, just be aware that more than likely it might be okay. but I say that with a lot of restraint. It's only a matter of time before it fully degrades, right? So if you go into a box and you're replacing a ceiling fan or something like that, or you're replacing an old receptacle in your house, or you're an electrician and you're going to replace some wires, just know that if it falls apart in your hand when you touch it, and that's not a good sign. So it's just a matter of time before that becomes an electrical and fire hazard. So just be aware that if you see it and you see that happening, you need to start thinking of plans in the back of your mind to fix that issue. Calling an electrician, calling somebody who in your area who you trust, and being able to get that fixed, because at some point in time it will become a fire hazard. And me being a service electrician in the New York area, 90% of the fires that I see are because of old wire. Like 90%. 90% of the wires, it's not because of how somebody designed it or how somebody hooked it up. More than likely, it's just old wiring that needs to be replaced, and people just don't want to replace it because it's too expensive. But it will be more expensive if you have a fire in your home or you have a fire in your business. It will be more expensive because the firefighters, when they come in, they're just going to pull everything apart, and then you're going to have to start from square one, and it's going to be more expensive then. So if you come across this wire, you need to start thinking of ways to mitigate that damage and start creating a plan and working with an electrician or a handyman, whatever you want to do. Work with somebody to try to fix that and eliminate that hazard. Okay? So obviously this is what it looks like when it's in your hand. It just breaks apart. It becomes very brittle, and you can see, from this cloth wiring, this is what I'm talking about. This black part is pretty much the thermoplastic. This is what basically protects the wire from heat, from other wires that are carrying current, so you don't create faults. And luckily, we don't live in California where we have like these seismic reactions, like earthquakes or anything like that. So most of the time, if you don't disturb the wire, it won't get damaged. But that's not always the case. So, we'll get into how to identify when you really should change a circuit in your home. Okay. Now, how do you fix cloth wiring? Now, some wiring in your home or your business can be fixed right at the box. So, how do you fix it? All right. Some people have been using electrical tape, and that's been the standard for a long time, right? The standard has always been electrical tape, right? And electrical tape is okay, but it's technically not an approved means, meaning that it wasn't designed, it wasn't manufactured, it wasn't made to fix old wiring. It just wasn't made for it. So it's good if you're in a pinch, or if you're a service electrician and you're doing an emergency call and you need to fix something and get like a heater running so some people won't freeze to death in their house, is good for that reason, but you definitely need to come back the next day and use the appropriate material needed to actually fix the problem or replace the whole circuit in general. So tape is good, but I would say it's not the best, right? It's been used for years and sometimes it does work, but I work out in the field. I see it. A lot of electrical fires happen even with tape. So tape is not, in my personal opinion, not the best. Some tape has stood like the test of time. Like you go into houses and like, man, this tape is still there. It's still rocking and rolling, right? And that's what a lot of people are saying. I'm not going against tape. I'm not saying tape doesn't work. I'm just saying that there's better solutions than tape. And if you really want to increase the chances of there not being a fire or a shock hazard, why wouldn't you want to go for the best standard and the best possible install? So tape is fine, but there's better solutions. All right, that's all I can say about it. All right, so electrical tape is good, but it's not a last resort. Like we just said, electrical tape was not designed, it wasn't listed, it wasn't made for fixing damaged wires, right? So just really understand this slide and understand that electrical tape was not designed for that. It wasn't manufactured. That's not what the instructions say that it's good for. All right, so how do you fix cloth wiring, right? Well, one option, and the option that I use with Explore Electric, my company, when I have to go fix like cloth wiring is heat shrink. Heat shrink is an approved, listed and is manufactured for the purpose of fixing damaged wires. That's why it was made. That's why it was designed. It's been tested in the laboratory. This is a tried and true way, right? If you look at the pictures here, this is actually something that's sold in Home Depot. This tube, this is like they give you a big roll of tubing. And then when you apply heat to it, it shrinks. You can actually purchase this on Amazon. So, you can screenshot this picture and then you can go look it up on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it'll pull up. But I also leave a link in the description below so you can also see it as well. So how do you know something is an approved means, and how do you know it was manufactured and is listed and is safe and you can use it in your home or your business, and or you can use it on the job and it's safe? Well, most things that are in the electrical industry have been tested and then approved to be sold in the electrical market. So when you look at a product, it should have a UL listing or an ETL listing, right? And that means it was tested in the laboratory. That means the heat shrink was put on some wire, and the wire was tested for a long period of time. They subjected that equipment to a lot of heat. They subjected that equipment to a lot of cold, and then they monitored it over a long period of time to see what the effects would be. And if it checks out, then it's good to go and it gets approved and you can sell it on the market, right? But it has to be tested in the laboratory for a long time before it even does that. So that's why tape is not kind of one of those things, right? It's not an approved means because it's not what the directions say it could be used for, right? So UL stands for underwriting laboratory, right? So it's an underwriting laboratory, and they pretty much test electrical equipment and electrical products for electrical equipment, like heat shrink, right? ETL is really ETL stands for Intertech. I believe it's Intertech Laboratories, Intertech Laboratories, I believe. And this is just another one. They also do test electrical equipment and electrical products, but they also do textiles, a lot of things that are like that's caustic. They test these products to make sure they're safe, that you can sell to the public, right? So they're like the FDA of the electrical industry, and the products and equipments that are around electrical equipment, right? So you look for these standards and you can say, okay, these have been tested. I can buy these and I can put these in my facility, and because they have this stamp of approval, this is good to go, this is safe, this is going to reduce dramatically shock and fire hazards, in the place that I live or the place that I do business, right? So that's how you know that it's an approved means. You don't want to just go out and go buy something and it doesn't have this standard. It's not really going to be safe, okay? So another way that you can fix this cloth wiring is that you can actually just replace the whole circuit, right? So another way to fix damaged wires is to replace the whole circuit. And when I mean replacing the circuit, I mean in your electrical panel. Some people call it a fuse box, or some people call it a load center. The actual true term is actually a load center, but we'll call it. It can be called, a fuse box. You can call it your electrical panel or whatever. But they're used interchangeably. They're used like that. So in your electrical panel or your fuse box or your load center, there's going to be a circuit breaker, and that circuit breaker limits the amount of amps that can go to pieces of equipment, a piece of equipment, or a number of equipment that can be changed out. So it'll be 2 or 3 wires going out to serve some piece of equipment, or pieces of equipment like maybe a whole bunch of lights in a room or something like that. So basically you would just replace those wires coming from just that one circuit breaker to whatever is serving, right? So sometimes there's such a degradation of the old cloth wiring that you have to replace the whole circuit for it to be electrically safe and habitable for people to do business or live in a certain premise. All right. So this is a way that you can do it. Now, how do you know that you have to rewire? Because rewiring is expensive. So you don't really want to do it unless you have to. If everything looks good, your thermoplastics look good, you go in there, you test it, it's not cracking, your conductors aren't cracking inside of a light box or a receptacle box, everything looks good, which is kind of uncommon, but if it is and everything's looking okay, then you might say, hey, I can leave it alone. But how do you know when you should change it, when you shouldn't change it, or when you can fix it? All right, so we're going to go over that right now. Right, so knowing when to replace a circuit in your business or home. All right, if you have dimming lights or flickering lights, right, that might be an indication that either your circuit breaker is bad or the wiring is degraded so much in the walls that you can't see it, that it's taking power away and not delivering enough to a certain load in your home. Right, so it might manifest itself in dimming lights or flickering lights. Another one is your equipment isn't turning on. It's not getting enough power. That means your wires are so corroded and the thermoplastics are failing that it's actually creating a load inside of your wall. And you might be getting a voltage drop, or you might not be getting enough power at the end of the line of a piece of equipment that you're serving, right? If you have breakers that are constantly tripping, if you replace a breaker in a home but it still keeps tripping, chances are you might have a bad circuit, right? If you smell smoke from a piece of electrical equipment, or there's a burning odor, like something's burning, that is a good indication that you might have some faulty wiring inside your home or inside your walls in your home or business, right? Your plug outlets become discolored or they're hot to the touch, right? Obviously, that's like a big one. If you replace the receptacle and it's still hot or it's still becoming discolored or you're still smelling some kind of like odor, chances are it's not the device itself, it's the wiring, right? Or your house or your business was probably built, your house or your business was built before the 1990s. So if your house was built before the 1990s, the electrical world was just a different world. We looked at grounding and bonding differently. We thought that you could put something into the earth and that would clear a fault. You know, a lot of things have changed and the electrical code is constantly changing. Every 3 years it comes out with a whole new set of rules. We're in New York City right now. They're on 2008 with the 11 amendments. I'm not a big fan of that, because there's been advancements in solar, there's been advancements in surge protection, there's been advancements in arc fault and ground fault circuit interruption. So there's been advancements in a lot of ways, and they've cleared up a lot of things that were confusing in the last cycles. So every 3 years a new electrical code comes out. We're on a 2023 right now nationally, but in New York City we're on 2008 with the 11 amendments. So that's really kind of ancient in my eyes and in my mind, but that's just the way it is. So just imagine that, and then your house was built in 1990s. It was a completely different set of rules then. So your house might not even be wired correctly. So it's just some things to take into account. One factor is not in a vacuum in itself, but it's just something. If you see a couple of factors, one or two, more than one, if you see like two or three, then there's a good indication that you have faulty wiring. And if you replace breakers, you replace receptacles, you replace lights, you replace other electrical equipment, and you're still getting these same symptoms like tripping breakers, like you're smelling something burning, good chances are that you need to rewire in your home, and you should call an electrician. And if you feel up to it, then mark my words, go ahead and do it. But you still need to address the issue before it becomes a full-blown issue, and then the firefighters come into your house and they just start ripping the walls and ripping the things apart, because they're not going to care. They're just going to rip everything out until they extinguish any kind of electrical or fire hazard that exists in your home or your business. All right, so it's better to just be on top of it now and at least recognize what these signs are. So now we're kind of done. I just kind of wanted to go over this little quick PowerPoint with you just to show you what this all represents. So now what we're going to actually do is I'm going to show you how to fix cloth wiring, and we're going to show you how to fix regular wiring as well, and why heat shrink is such a cool product, and why you should have it in your home or in your business to fix wires when you do eventually come across one of those old circuits. All right, so let's get into that and then we'll wrap up this video. All right, let's go. This is what we're actually going to be using. This is going to be Wi-Fi heat shrink. It actually comes in a tube, and this is actually, I'll bring it up to the camera. This is actually UL listed. So as you can see that this is UL listed. Also too, I have a number of wires here. And this is not cloth wiring. This is just regular modern day wire, but I'm going to show you that it can also be used to fix this as well. So I've actually skinned out some portions of it so you'll be able to see how it's fixed. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fix this cloth wire, right? So this is the cloth wire. As you can see, it's pretty damaged, right? And I'm going to show you how good this heat shrink stuff is. So in order to do that, you will need a torch. And the torch will be used to basically heat the wire up or heat the heat shrink up so it'll actually shrink onto the wire. So we'll take this cloth, take this heat shrink, this damaged piece of cloth wire, which you can see is pretty damaged. We'll place it on here like so. And you can see from the wire that it's not coming out. There's actually an epoxy inside here, and it's almost acts as a glue, but it also acts as a further insulation. So as it shrinks around the wire, you know, you can move it now, and it's not degraded, right? So that's what makes heat shrink so cool, that you can fix this wire. And the wire is pretty much protected. Now I'm also going to do this with regular wire to show you that it can also be used with regular wire too. Not to protect it. Right. What I want to do is and that's what you get. Like I said, there's like some kind of like glue inside here too, some kind of epoxy. And then that's what you use. You can't take this wire out. It's pretty much in there. Now you can turn it, you can twist it, you can move it, and it's fully repaired now. So this is kind of what you want to use for the correct installation. Once again, I'll show you a little piece cloth wire that we actually fixed as well. So this little cloth wire, you can see it's on there, it's not coming out. And now you can actually use this and repair wire and stuff it back in the box without creating a kind of fault, some kind of ground fault or some kind of short circuit. And this is an approved means of repairing wire. This is like the go-to, and this is a completely safe installation. I think it's better than using electrical tape. Electrical tape is fine, you know. Worst case scenario, you can use that. So if you ever come across it in your home, you can save yourself some bucks without calling me. But if it's something that's really dangerous, then don't hesitate to give Explore Electric a call. All right? Thank you so much. Have a good day. Thinking of her.